All right, here we go again. Um, Gotta pull this up.
Situation for this area and throughout Southern California. It looks like these plumes of smoke now rising vertically, which is some good news here. But as the National Weather Service has warned us, this wind event and high wind alert is going to stick with us throughout the day today. So Samada Khan has come in here also early to tell us a little bit more about that wind situation. Has that wind alert been extended, or are we looking at that wind alert taking place till this afternoon or this evening?
Yeah, high wind warnings are still in place through about 6 p.m. this evening for pretty much just about everywhere across Southern California. Good morning to you, Bob and Alex. Where, especially when we're dealing with these powerful Santa Ana winds, it has come into fruition. What we have been fearing is if there was just a minor spark, that it could explode, and this has been quite an event so far. We now have, to Bob's point, three fires actively burning. Palisades Fire in Pacific Palisades. We have the Eaton Fire in the Altadena, just north of the Pasadena area. And the latest fire, the Hearst Fire, burning near Sylmar. Please be extra cautious as you're hitting the roadways and those winds, as we had just talked about. We are in the thick of the Santa Ana winds peaking. We're not out of the woods for at least another several hours into the early part of this morning before we start to notice winds slowly subsiding. Wind conditions won't be as gusty, but they will still be there, and it will continue to pose fire concerns, and depends on your location. For LA County, Ventura County areas, the red flag conditions will stay in effect till 6 p.m. tonight. If you live out towards the Inland Empire communities, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Orange counties, the red flag conditions have been extended into Thursday. So if you see something so critical that you say something. And a shout out to all the first responders out there, the fire department, the police department, trying to keep all our community members safe, and to all the community members that have continued to be with us and watch everything unfold. We're trying to give you the most up-to-date information. So winds, again, very strong across Southern California. We've already picked up wind gusts. We had chatted about this since Monday, right, Bob? Hurricane force conditions. Magic Mountain Truck Trail clocked in with a wind speed or wind gust of up to 86 miles per hour. And there's that potential that we could see similar conditions in some isolated areas. Not out of the question that 100-mile-per-hour winds could also be observed. But at this point, we are looking at that range of gusts, 60 to 80-plus miles an hour, and sustained winds, still very ferocious, a range of 20, 30 miles an hour to sustained winds up to 40 to 45. Here's a look at our weather impact. So we're still, again, in the thick of this fire danger. When we're talking about relative humidity, very dry out there as those winds continue to blow offshore. The strong Santa Ana is blowing out of the north to northeast, pushing south to southwest. Power outages have been reported. Plenty of downed trees, unfortunately, and power lines as well. So if you can avoid traveling today, but if you can't avoid traveling today, make sure you're extra cautious on the roadways. Pay close attention to where you're driving and give yourself a lot of extra time leaving home this morning. Strong crosswinds if you're driving a big rig, those big campers, just general vehicles altogether. Those winds are strong enough to kind of move your vehicle around a little bit. And you add the blowing dust, debris. I was seeing that myself coming to work, and even on the way home yesterday. I was dodging palm fronds just trying to get home safely. So a reminder to drive very carefully under these circumstances. And unfortunately, the winds are expected to be still very powerful as the morning commute begins. Here's a look at our wind future cast, Bob. These highlighted contours, it's now just after 2 a.m. and we're still dealing with those strong winds. You can see the wind arrows going offshore. This applies to the strongest winds across not just the Santa Monica Mountains, where the Palisades fire is currently burning, across the Santa Clarita Valley, the San Fernando Valley, the San Gabriel Valley. Areas that typically don't see this type of strong winds are also now experiencing it. And the 15 stretch through the Cajon Pass, very windy, crestline. Some of our local mountains also seeing those ferocious gusts. Santa Ana Mountains, those winds are descending. So Orange County, extremely windy there also across the IE. By 4 a.m., so just a couple hours from now, no real change. This continues to sustain its strength all the way through 6 o'clock in the morning as well. And there's that still potential that we could still see gusts right around 80 miles per hour, if not stronger than that. 9 a.m., still the contours are with us through those very same vulnerable areas. It won't be until at least noon to 1 o'clock where we see these winds subside just a tad, so there's a little help on the way, but it won't be until this evening where high wind warnings will lift right around 6 to 8 p.m., a big dramatic difference. So there is good news on the way in terms of when the winds are expected to relax. But right now, we are in the thick of it. This particularly dangerous situation, we had talked about this yesterday, Bob, life-threatening, damaging winds, and unfortunately, it has come into fruition.
Yeah, some of those problem spots that the National Weather Service, Samata, had talked about, the 210 freeway, especially the 118, those corridors had some powerful winds over the course of a whole day yesterday. And to your point, on my drive to work this morning, yeah, I saw a lot of trees down, branches down. So just shows how significant that this windstorm was, how widespread it currently is. But definitely in some of those problem spots there, we saw that the winds, as powerful as they may have been in your area, in these areas where we have these fires that have broken out, you have one spark, and if you have these gusts, 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, and you can certainly have a major conflagration blowing up in that area very quickly with so much fuel and so much area to burn, especially with these relative low humidities. So all of those communities there, where the Eaton Canyon is, where the Hearst fire is, along the 210 freeway, along the 210 corridor, definitely were big problem spots that the National Weather Service had suggested could be a big problem, and certainly over the past several hours, those are where some of those fires have burned. These are live pictures right now in the near the Palisades area. Interesting to me as I saw this picture here this morning, because this is on Sunset and remind me here where this is. It's near the Riviera area, Amalfi. So near the golf course there, which interesting to me is because if you had this fire that was breaking out in the Palisades area, in the hills, and the fire moved to the west, to the south, to the west, to the north, it was very erratic. You would think that those Santa Ana winds, which pushed westward and west and south, would have pushed this toward the ocean. Now that did in fact happen. We saw those fires moving, and I think with daylight, we're going to see all of the damage that this fire had caused as it moved so quickly through some of Malibu, jumping Pacific Coast Highway, hitting a large part of Pacific Coast Highway, even on the ocean side of Pacific Coast Highway. We'll see that this morning. But to see this as it traveled sort of southwards and now threatening the Brentwood area. You know, these are areas to sort of the east and towards the south, and you think that those folks would feel a little safer in the sense that they were not in the direction of the winds, Samata. But now we're looking at these winds being so erratic and so strong that these embers, you know, the spotting can certainly happen almost anywhere within this 2 to 5 mile vicinity of where this fire is burning.
Absolutely, Bob. Did you see those embers? We talked about the possibility of long-range spotting, and that just applies to with the strong winds, it can drive embers miles down. And to your point, with the chaotic wind conditions and the quick change in wind direction that could pose a hazard to areas that you would think would not be in the path of fire. But with one little spark, it could create its separate fire, its whole separate issue. And we have been dealing with, unfortunately, erratic winds. Hence, the National Weather Service has not only issued high wind warnings and red flag conditions for a particular area, but this is widespread. With the dry fuels, one little spark, any fire ignition source could lead to explosive, unpredictable fire behavior.
I saw this modeling once where someone showed me exactly what we were dealing with this fire, and they said they likened it to if you had thousands and thousands and thousands of individual matches, and you took those individual matches and you blew them under a high wind tunnel and just threw them into any sort of area. So you think about that, and you saw all of these pictures of just random homes, structures burning. You see these pictures of vehicles that are just in the middle of the street, and all of a sudden the vehicle is on fire. This is what's causing, what causes that fire is the spotting and these embers that are still burning, and they are blown at a great distance, at a high velocity, and then find anything that is somewhat flammable, a little flammable, and just bursts into flames and then catches fire. That starts a fire, and then we have a domino effect where you have multiple homes burn, multiple vehicles burn, large areas, acres that are burned very quickly. That wind then just drives the fire so rapidly, so quickly, with so much vegetation, so much fuel to burn.
And with all that being said, a constant reminder to have a get ready, get set and go bag ready. You have to make sure that you have your personal items, important documents, prescriptions. An evacuation plan is critical, especially when we're dealing with these high fire danger conditions, wind speeds we've been talking about, and that's what continues to drive these erratic winds. Gusts have been ranging 60, 70, 80 plus miles per hour, and under those conditions, it is nearly impossible to contain.
All right, we saw Ed Laskos getting into frame there. It's been quite a night for Ed. Ed, what's the situation there? Tell us how your night has been. Have you been positioned there the entire time? Have you been moving as this fire has been moving?
We've been moving, Bob. We were in the heart of the Palisades, the village area, and the fire just roared through there, right in the center of the village. Many of the businesses, family-owned businesses, lost up in flames. Several of the homes along Sunset, as we evacuated ourselves along Sunset, moving east along Sunset past Chautauqua Canyon, and many of the homes, I hate to tell you, on both sides of Sunset burned to the ground. And then we get over to this area, Sunset further east, El Malfi Drive, near Brentwood, near the world-famous Riviera Country Club, and the fire has been roaring up along, moving eastward. And many of the homes, some of the thick black smoke you see, some of the homes down in that little valley area of Sunset going up in flames. We hear a lot of popping, a lot of blasting back and forth. And this fire, relentless. Look at the black smoke coming up, blowing as this wind, very strong, still here, blowing it toward the ocean, but continuing its march slowly eastward along Sunset, moving dangerously close now to the Brentwood area, the hills here. A lot of fire engines who were stationed down in that area somewhat evacuated themselves. Maybe we've seen about 12 or so engines here in the last 5 minutes or so move along Sunset, move further east up along Sunset over toward 26th Street in that area of Brentwood. So the fire here slowly moving in this direction, but also blowing down, moving toward the ocean itself. Several of the homes in that area are lost. We thought when we left the Palisades area itself, the eastern side of the Palisades, that we would have left that tremendous fire zone zone and left the area where we saw so many of the homes and businesses gone. And then these more homes continue to burn here. And when you talk about the businesses, we see fires like this, sadly, many times in canyons or in the wooded areas, high up on the mountainside, the ridges. But when you see a fire actually burning here through neighborhoods like this, through the center of a community, Pacific Palisades, burning businesses, burning multi-million-dollar homes, it is heartbreaking. And perhaps the worst scenario of all of this is the wind's still blowing like crazy, and there is no control of this fire. It's an out-of-control monster right now, Bob.
You know, this surprised me, Ed, when I stepped into the studio this morning and they told me that you were here. Sunset and Amalfi, and it shocked me because when we saw all of those homes burning in the Palisades area, to see that this fire had moved this far east, wow, and there are flames still burning there. And describe to me again, because anybody that has gone through the Palisades Village area, this is the big Caruso properties there along Sunset Boulevard, and you're telling me that that area or near that area, there were businesses along Sunset Boulevard that were burning on both sides? What did you see there?
Yes, it was hell on earth, to be honest with you, right in the heart there. Swarthmore is that intersection, if you're familiar with it. There's a Starbucks on one side. Yeah. The Rick Caruso Village development right on the other side. Well, the side to the western part of it, from Swarthmore to the next block over Villa de Paz, that mostly of some older style apartments and condo buildings and some family-owned businesses, all up in flames when we left there. The fire also jumped on the backside of Starbucks, the block over and over toward near the CVS pharmacy. Some of the businesses over there, family-owned businesses, some of the higher-end clothing stores, gutted, completely gutted. The fire also burning down along near the pharmacy, CVS pharmacy. There were some Italian restaurants, other restaurants in that area, all burned to the ground, unbelievably so. The Gelson's, which is right there also in the middle of it, it was taking out a lot of flaming embers, flying embers, but we didn't see it have any damage at that point. And that entire area, and then in the backside of where the Gelson's is on Radcliffe, as you go down, and that runs parallel to Temescal Canyon, right down by Pali High School, goes down to PCH. That block on both sides, more than a dozen homes. We were there through the late afternoon, early evening hours, burning one after another as it was a firestorm. And the only fire truck at that point, the only fire engine we saw there came from Long Beach, of all places. Whoa. Long Beach Fire Engine 10. Some of the firemen got there and they tried to hook up some hoses to try to help some of the homes that were not burning yet. Structure protection, and it appeared that they hooked up the hoses, but they had no water. There was not much they could do, so they pulled back and did the best they could. But unfortunately, those homes continued to burn from the west side to the east side of the street, only because it was a rain of flaming embers with these winds blowing. And that's pretty much what we've been seeing here as this fire continues its march eastward along Sunset, if you will. These embers blowing up. Mike Armijo, the photographer, saying they almost look like missiles flying into the air at some point, pushed up by these winds that continue to gush here, the gust. And then these embers maybe go a mile or so down and light up another area. So many spot fires what we're dealing with now, and this fire down in the area here along Sunset, but again moving closer to Amalfi, closer over to the Brentwood area per se, near the Riviera Country Club. Fire engines have moved over. They're doing some structure protection. The northern side of Sunset up near Amalfi, and many other of the engines now have moved further east over toward 26th Street, staging over there. But there's not much they can do. This thing is just burning, and the winds continue to blow through here, and everybody's just holding their breath pretty much.
I mean, I think we can see that really clearly with Mike's pictures there, and of those burning embers and how far they appear to be traveling, and that scene that you're describing is just crazy, especially when you think that some of these communities likely thought they might be not in harm's way with those Santa Ana winds pushing westward. What was the scene like there in terms of the evacuations? Because people were probably caught off guard. Maybe they weren't under evacuation orders. Maybe they saw the flames but thought, hey, we're okay right now. And then when you have law enforcement stretched thin. It's not like they have time to go door to door knocking on people's doors. Along that area in the Palisades, was that a rush and a scramble to get out as well, as we saw earlier during the day when people were trying to get out of the Palisades area and going down Palisades Drive onto Sunset Boulevard? Was there a scrum, so to speak, to try to get out of the area?
Yeah, very much so. About an hour or so after what you're describing, when the fire first broke out, Palisades, up in the Highlands area, as they call it here, burning down Palisades Drive. You had all the vehicles, and many of the folks just abandoned their vehicles, started running down Palisades Drive, the Sunset, and the ocean. So the fire department had to come in with their big bulldozers, if you will, and they pushed the vehicles out of the way to clear a path for the fire engines to get back up there. But to the point you're mentioning, after that, there was a long line of traffic stretching, snaking, as everybody was trying to evacuate, moving from Sunset over toward Pali High School, over toward Temescal Canyon, and then down the canyon over to PCH. And it was one of the folks was telling me it was maybe like an hour and a half, a ride that normally would take you at the most 10 minutes if you if you didn't get all the lights. At the most, it took well over an hour and a half because of the traffic was so tight. 2 lanes all the way down, because they would stop you right at Temescal and Sunset. They wouldn't let you into the village because they were concerned that there was a fire danger there, so they wanted to get everybody down to PCH as quickly as they could. They finally did that, and then by late afternoon there really wasn't much of an evacuation at all. I did spot several times LAPD with their black and whites going through the area, through the village of the Palisades, on their loudspeakers saying, get out now if you haven't, mandatory evacuations, don't wait. And the evacuation route, they kept saying with their loudspeakers, evacuate Sunset eastbound. That's where we are now, eastbound, just east of the Palisades village, if you will. El Malfi and Sunset, and the fire inching, burning, well, kind of too close for comfort at this point, burning in the easterly direction and also burning down toward the ocean.
Sorry to keep you on here, Ed. Honestly, I do want to get your perspective on this, because we've covered, multiple fires over the course of decades, right? I think what makes this fire so different is that, we often go to these fires where you're in the urban wildland interface and we're going up into the mountains, into the hills, and certainly those are always problem spots when it comes to the wind, the fuel, the terrain. And now we're here. These communities, these sprawling communities have been growing for years. So this fire is smack dab in the middle of the Los Angeles region, where everybody works, plays, go to school, go to work. I mean, it has really hit a integral part of Los Angeles, and we're not talking about like some far reach, some community that's a mountain community. So I think that this sort of makes this different. In the time that you've been reporting over the years, don't you get that feeling that this is a lot different or historic in terms of the fires that we've covered?
Yeah, historic. We're certainly watching history burn itself into the history books. I've never seen anything like this in the decades. You're right. When we see the fires, remember the fire we saw a few weeks ago over on Malibu Canyon, Las Virgenes, that came down, deep terrain, very rugged terrain. But I never ever have seen a fire where it's in a metropolitan area like this, burning along a major artery like Sunset, burning homes on both sides of Sunset, burning right through the very heart of the Palisades village, burning the businesses, burning the homes that have been there for decades, wiped right off the map. Part of Palisades High School, Pali High School, damage, we understand, the classrooms and the football field area there. So yeah, I've never seen anything like this. Normally you see them up on the hillsides, they come down the foothills, they threaten the communities there, but never in the very heart of a community, still out of control. And as it marches up Sunset here, it's burning everything on both sides of Sunset. As I mentioned earlier, when we left the Palisades village to evacuate over in this area, further east, driving past Chautauqua on Sunset, both sides of Sunset, you'd look and you'd say, my God, there's no homes. Everything is just smoldering. Everything is just wiped away. It was apocalyptic.
Both sides of Sunset, we understand even both sides of Pacific Coast Highway. It is just amazing how this fire has burned. All right, thank you so much, Ed. Great to talk to you. I know it's been a while, but these extraordinary times that we're dealing with right now, and best you and Mike, we'll check in with you in just a bit. As we take a look at these pictures again, we want to just remind you that there are multiple school closures as well throughout our region. The superintendent of schools for the LA Unified School District, Alberto Carvalho, he went on the air yesterday and went on social media platforms to notify folks that, yes, many schools in the LAUSD will be closed or campuses are relocated because of this fire. Obviously, most of the schools that are in this region, in the Palisades, will be impacted here. We're talking about multiple schools, including Canyon Charter Elementary School, Marquez Charter Elementary School, the Palisades Charter Elementary School, and the Paul Revere Charter Middle School. All of them will be closed. District officials saying that they will monitor the fire throughout the day today and potentially shift those campuses to remote learning on Thursday. Also, Glendale Unified also announcing that schools, child care operations, and district office will be closed due to high winds and fires impacting the region. We expect that to change as well, as the day goes on, as folks wake up this morning and see the wind, the damage, not just from these fires, but the impacts from the smoke and all of that. But we'll keep you updated, and we'll continue to collect that list for you and bring that information as it comes in. Aaron, where did you say we're going to now? We're going to a spokesperson with the LAFD.
This is crazy.
It's Margaret, give me your name, Stewart?
Yes, Margaret Stewart.
Hi, Margaret. Thanks for joining us so early this morning. I know it's been a very long night. You're with the LA City Fire Department now, obviously dealing with this major fire, historic fire, as we know now in the Palisades. We're surprised that this fire has moved as widespread as it has been. I know that this wind has driven this fire, but now tell us the boundaries of this fire. How far has this fire now moved eastwards, and what should we be telling people in the Brentwood area or any of the areas surrounding the eastern part of the flank of this fire?
Well, our evacuation zone hasn't changed. Santa Monica, did add to that southeastern portion. We want anyone that's in the vicinity near the borders of our evacuation zone to maintain awareness. Sign up at Notify LA to get the wireless emergency alerts. Sign up for LAFD alerts at lafd.org/alerts. And then obviously check in with the news to keep their awareness. And they should be prepared, have a go bag ready, have the vehicles facing out in the driveway. And if there's any question, the earlier you evacuate, the safer it is for everyone.
Yeah, it looks like, Margaret, that a lot of people were just caught off guard here. So perhaps they were in the evacuation zone or close to the evacuation zone, and then, they just had to leave at a moment's notice. So I think your advice there is good, that people, if you're nearby this fire, if you're anywhere near this area, that you just be prepared in case something should happen. And the evacuation center there, can you tell us about that? Is that still at the Westwood Recreation Center?
It is. The Westwood Recreation Center is a shelter for overnight, as well as just an evacuation center, so people can remain there overnight. They accept small animals. Any large animals goes to the LA Equestrian Center. And I just want to emphasize what you mentioned about being prepared. We knew these winds were coming, and it's what we've been messaging for the last few days, is asking people to be what we call ready, set, go, which provides a plan for a go bag, for a communication plan for your family, a checklist for all the items that you should have in your evacuation bag. And we just can't emphasize enough how important that is. And I agree with you, our people had to leave at a moment's notice. And that's why when you live in these, wildland brush areas, you must always be ready, because when it does happen, you don't have time to prepare. You need to be prepared.
No doubt, Margaret. And could you tell us about the firefight overnight? We had some reports from our reporters there that firefighters were stretched thin, and even going through some of the Palisades area, a little further eastwards, the Palisades Village area, they reported flames and yet seeing only one fire truck. What is the situation there in terms of the resources, the firefighters there on the ground? What do we have there? And also, can you tell us about the winds? Because there's always this concern about whether or not we could get air resources up in the air and whether that firefight could continue at night. What can you tell us about that?
So we can fly at night. Night isn't the issue. The winds are the issue. So all air assets are grounded right now because of the winds. It's unsafe, nor would they be effective. So they're constantly monitoring. Our air support is ready and awaiting any window they have. So they're monitoring the weather. And as soon as they have an opening, they'll be up, flying, and making those drops. That's obviously a key element of our fight that we're not able to use right now, and so it's extremely challenging. You mentioned that these winds, that topography, we just can't stop this fire on the ground. It's just not possible to do so, which is why it's so important for people to adhere to the evacuation plans and stay aware and follow the orders, evacuate early.
The helicopters in particular, they're pretty dexterous. They're nimble and they can move and they can fly in conditions like this. I'm sorry, not in conditions like this, but in heightened conditions. So what is the biggest concern there when we're having aircraft flying in winds this erratic and this strong?
You just can't. We've got winds gusting over 80 miles an hour, and that's unsafe for any aircraft. They're not going to be able to function in that kind of wind. And then they drop in over top of the fire where the wind is even stronger because the fire creates its own weather. So with these winds at 50 to 80 miles per hour, it's not safe for aircraft.
And then, Margaret, we were hearing that call yesterday for any firefighters who are off duty who could pitch in to come in. Is that call still out there? And tell us what the situation is on the ground when it comes to our fire units. Do you still need the help? What's the situation there?
Yeah.
And I'm sure more resources are on the way.
So I want to clarify, there was some misinformation that was being circulated. We were under an LAFD recall. So our message was for our own LAFD members who are off duty to contact our operations center with their availability to be scheduled to come in. It was not a call for anyone outside of our own LAFD members. So that was conducted. We do, the state fire agency, CAL FIRE, is the one that coordinates bringing strike teams in from across the state. And so we'll have that information from them once we get it. And then obviously we have our mutual aid system where our immediate neighbors have resources on scene. So we have that both at the Hearst fire and at the Palisades fire.
And are you aware of any other resources that are coming in right now? I know that the governor was saying yesterday that there were resources from across the state that were already pre-positioned here. But no doubt if this is protracted for another couple of days, firefighters are going to need some relief.
Yes, as I mentioned, CAL FIRE, their incident management team will be taking over command of this incident tomorrow, and we'll get the list. There are resources en route. I just don't have what exactly that list is available.
Margaret, we really appreciate you talking to us this morning, and as we continue to notify all of our viewers out there that have been impacted by this devastating fire. We appreciate you, Margaret. We will check in with you, if you don't mind, a little later when we get when we need an update. We appreciate it, Margaret. Thank you. Let's go to Mario Ramirez. He is at the location of the fire in Sylmar. This is being called the Hearst Fire. Mario, you just got there on the scene. What can you tell us? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, and I will say the fire is still raging. Sam Dubin behind the camera. I want to show you the flames that are making their way downhill here. We're at the Oak Ridge Mobile Estates community, a private community, and there are still residents here in the area that are evacuating. I have one family here. They're actually turning around. I asked where you're headed. They said they don't know, but away from here. So walk me through what this has been like for you all. Let me ask you guys in the back. What has this been like for you all? I know your mom's a little stressed up front.
I mean, it's nerve-wracking. You got people out here losing their homes. You got family, you know, under constant little stress. You know, it's really scary. You got people out here. You wonder if the neighbors are out. They're getting out of their homes okay. So, you know, right now we're just trying to get up out of this area. We're just trying to get to someplace safe, and we're praying for everybody.
Was there any sort of alert or any type of emergency alert on your phones to leave home?
There's constant alerts that's coming through over the phone. We just hope that everybody's getting them, you know, especially the people who didn't go to bed early, the older people who don't know. We just hoping that everybody gets out safe.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you talking to us. Stay safe. So they're sort of trying to figure out exactly where to go from here because there hasn't been much time to prepare. So as we look here at these flames, I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on here. The Hearst fire started at about 50 acres around 10 o'clock last night, quickly growing to 500 acres in a few hours. And, of course, driven by those high winds that we've been feeling since yesterday and dry vegetation here in the area. Now, this broke out near the freeway, the 5 freeway where it meets the 14 and the 210 freeways. Several areas under mandatory evacuations, which means leave now, and they include residents along Balboa Boulevard, Filbert Street, Brittle Ridge Road, and Nicholas Drive. We should also mention that a little farther north, the area near Whitney Canyon Park has also been ordered to evacuate. Evacuation warnings, which means you should be prepared to leave. They're in place for the Newhall Pass, Calgrove, and Wildwood areas. And that's basically a large portion, a large area north of the 210 freeway from Roxford Street. 3 evacuation centers have been set up. Richie Valens Rec Center on Laurel Canyon in Pacoima, Northridge Park, and the Sepulveda Recreation Center in Panama City. So we do see Panorama City, I should say. We do see fire crews here, LA County fire crews, but as we've been saying, there really is not much they can do as far as containing the fire. These winds are still whipping around. We talked about how strong they would be yesterday, sustained gusts or sustained winds at 20 to 40 miles per hour, and those gusts up to 80 miles per hour. So we've definitely been feeling it here this morning. We don't see any homes damaged right now in this area. We know some of the other fires we've been talking about, several dozens of structures have burned. So we're keeping an eye on things here. But I did just talk to one person who was headed down, and I asked if he was a resident here in this community. He said came from downtown to just look at what's going on here. So we're sort of seeing looky-loos who are coming into.
Everybody gets out safe.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you talking to us. Stay safe. So they're sort of trying to figure out here in Sylmar, and this fire still burning out of control here behind me, Bob.
So we just spoke with a fire official with LAFD, and I'm sure it's the same situation there, Mario, that these aircraft had to be grounded because of the heavy winds. And when you have crews there, they're just trying to either save lives. First of all, there was a line of cars there. Were a number of people alongside the road. These are not evacuees, but you say these might be more looky-loos and the like.
You know what? Let's make our way down here because there are a few media cars parked here, but that's what we've been seeing is people driving up. That family we just heard from turning around, they said they live here in this area for a few years and they've never experienced a fire like this. So
while you say that, Mario, I just want to the Oak Ridge Mobile Home Park. Over the course of the years, as I seem to remember, there had been a fire here that burned several years ago. The Oak Ridge Mobile Home Park. I seem to remember that. So, but obviously this is a new situation here. Yeah, what are you seeing there? There's some residents there?
Yeah, you know what? I'm talking to you now. We're live on Good Day LA here, Fox 11. You say you don't live here in the area. You came to see if you can volunteer. You brought some supplies.
Yes, I brought not a lot, but I brought some, like drinks and 3 gallons of water. And
what made you do that? You were watching and saw the coverage, or you knew this was happening and thought, let me go out and help?
Well, I was figuring, I heard about the coverage that it's being, firefighter being stretched thin. So I had a little experience in the military, fighting fires, but on board a ship. So I figure maybe help be an extra eye to keep look for flare-ups and see if I can either, dig some trenches or something.
Yeah, that's much appreciated. I know a lot of these residents here could use the help, but you stay safe. Appreciate you talking to us. So yeah, this car here just pulled up and turned around. So there was it looked like a family in that vehicle, a family of 4 or 5 piled into that vehicle. So they likely drove up, looked at the activity and said, no, this isn't going to work. We can't go through. There's too many fire trucks, too many flames that are close to these homes. So let me turn around.
Yeah.
This is Sombrero Street here in the Oak Ridge mobile home community, as you said, Bob.
Live TV here, and I know you're just getting there and getting your bearings and taking a look at the situation there firsthand. So we're going to let you go for now and check in with you in just a bit as you assess the situation there. Mario, we appreciate it. Let's go to Samada to talk more about the wind situation there. And we were talking to that fire official who said, you're talking about winds, gusts up to 80 miles per hour, and like any aircraft couldn't fly in that. So
absolutely not.
There's basically nothing they can do in terms of the air assets, which we need so desperately. So at the same time, you have these crews on the ground. They're just trying to save life and property at this point.
And they're working very hard the gentleman that Mario had just interviewed. Now, his heart is in the right place, but he's in the wrong place. This is what you don't want to be doing. You want to stay out of the fire zone if you don't belong there. I know he wants to help, but it's a constant reminder that because we're dealing with erratic winds and the brush fires surrounding the area, it makes it a dangerous situation, and not just for him, but for the fire crews that are working very hard to try to contain that fire. The winds, unfortunately, continue to be very strong. If you're just now waking up with us, you're just now joining us, or maybe you have been with us since yesterday, we certainly do appreciate you, and we're trying to give you the most up-to-date information. And we are in the thick of the peak winds for at least the next several hours into the early part of the morning, where sustained winds continue to be the range of 20, 30 to even 50 miles an hour, gusts 60 to 80 plus. We had been advertising this since the beginning of the week, and unfortunately everything is coming together.
Oh, you can't sleep either?
The reality is that it continues to be very dangerous. We did clock in, or at least an observation site at Magic Mountain Truck Trail, Bob, clocked in at 86 miles an hour. Right? That is hurricane force winds.
Yeah, no, I'm like,
locations outside of the San Gabriel Mountains, the Santa Ana Mountains, Fremont Canyon also had similar wind gusts of up to 80 miles an hour. And the danger continues to be in place. The high wind warning will remain strong, at least again through midday, I would say, before things back off, not until later tonight. But there is some good news. Later this evening, as I showed you earlier, our wind futurecast, winds will slowly start to subside. But that doesn't mean that we're out of the danger zone in terms of fire ignition. Red flag conditions do continue possibly into Thursday for areas of the Inland Empire communities in Orange County. This continues to be a particularly dangerous situation. PDS, when you combine critical fire danger and those damaging winds with low relative humidity, any brand new spark can create, unfortunately, again, the explosive conditions that we have seen already with 3 active fires currently burning across Southern California. We have the Palisades fire, just heartbreaking images coming in, as well as the Eaton fire and the Hearst fire that broke out just recently, just a few hours ago. And we have tabs on all 3. And we continue to closely watch our wind conditions. Here's a look at the futurecast. We still have those winds going offshore coming out of the north-northeast, and the highlighted contours are the locations where winds are the strongest. And you can see how it continues to blow through. We move and animate this out to 4 a.m., so just about a couple hours from now, not a whole lot of change. We continue to see brightly lit conditions where wind speeds, again, the range of 20 to 40 miles an hour sustained with those gusts up to 60 to even 80 miles an hour. This applies to the Santa Ana Mountains, much of Orange County, the IE, Fontana, Rancho Cucamonga, Riverside, San Bernardino. It applies to all our local mountains across the San Gabriel Mountains, the San Bernardino Mountains, Riverside County Mountains, and continues to be a problem for Ventura County, LA County, 7 a.m. as people are starting to get on the roadway. So unfortunately, the winds will be very strong as you start your commute. Very dark out right now. Sunrise not until 7 a.m. where we'll get a better look at everything.
Simone, I want to ask you while you're on this, because you're at 7 a.m. there, we're now at 1 p.m. But at 7 a.m. there is this phenomenon when the sun rises, when we're dealing with these winds, that the wind can pick up.
It can
in the early morning as the sun rises.
When the temperatures start to warm up, the temperature differences going offshore, it actually increases the wind speeds. And unfortunately, that is a possibility even going into the early part of this morning. And that's why we have tabs on that 7 to 9 a.m. hour where we start to see the sunrise and the surface starts to warm up.
So a lot of information there, but just to summarize for folks that are sitting at home and they're wondering when can we see a relief in terms of the high winds, it's pretty much through the day today, but we'll see it tapering off later on this afternoon. At least we won't get those like 80-mile-per-hour gusts. They'll be a little not as forceful.
Correct. It will still be windy, it will still be gusty, but not as ferocious as what we're experiencing now. We've been talking about how winds expected to peak, and the time frame was late last night through the overnight hours, which we are in the middle of now, into the early part of the morning, to your point, before winds may get a little better right around your lunch hour today. So there's a glimpse of good news as we get into the later part of this evening.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get, right? All right, so let's get through this morning and through the early afternoon. Samantha, thank you. Let's take a look now. Again, this is the Mount Wilson camera, and we're looking at heavy flames there still in the mountains. This is a fast-moving brush fire, the Eaton fire in the Altadena area. This has destroyed buildings. It's forced evacuations, prompted widespread school closures. This is a fire that was first reported after 6 o'clock last night. It was spotted near Altadena Drive and Midwick Drive, the San Gabriel Mountains. The Eaton fire consumed 1,000 acres by midnight, and again, there are mandatory evacuations that took effect for areas north of New York Drive, east of Altadena Drive, west of Sierra Madre Villa Drive, and eventually expanded to parts of Arcadia and Pasadena. San Gabriel Valley heavily impacted by this. Crews evacuated a senior center in the path of the flames. From what I understand, this was more like also a convalescent home there, so it was very difficult to try and get some of those residents out. They had to bring in buses to help get these folks out and to safety, but a major evacuation taking place there for that senior center. There was also another McDonald's in that area that was burned to the ground. They moved those residents to safety. An estimated 19,000 people are under mandatory evacuation orders. 8,200 structures are now at risk. No injuries were reported so far. This is the good news.
Oh my God.
But we don't know how many buildings or homes have been destroyed so far, but no doubt there is still a lot of destruction in that area with daylight. And as we get our crews there, we will bring you some of those pictures over the coming hours. Brooke Thomas now joining us here on the set here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
For our coverage here, we're going to go to Ed Lascos. He is in the Riviera area, just east of that Palisades Village area on Sunset Boulevard, to give us a look at what's happening there. Ed, how are we doing?
And Bob, the wind's still blowing very strongly here, and the fire is still exploding along Sunset. Mikey will give you a look. A few more of the homes down here on Sunset. We are east of the village of the Palisades. Our cross street here on Sunset is El Malfi Drive, another big gust. listen to these winds as they howl through here. And as you see, the winds hit the front flank of this fire. Smoke goes straight up. The embers go flying up into the air. And that has been a big problem hour after hour in this firefight, because the embers spot maybe a mile, 2 miles ahead with another spot fire. And there's another big problem in that area. But in terms of the Palisades and the village itself, when we evacuated ourselves a couple of hours ago, many of the buildings and the homes in the Palisades burning, the heart of the Palisades I'm talking about, right at the Sunset and Swarthmore. In that area, some of the family-owned businesses burning along as we drove out along Sunset eastward along Chautauqua. Many of the homes on both sides have been there since the 60s, the 70s. Many of them were gone. It looked like a war zone, to be frank with you. So we got all the way over here thinking we would really ahead of the fire, and all of a sudden the fire marching further east along Sunset. And they're trying to put a stop to it here, because the concern was with these winds blowing that it might actually start to threaten the western side of Brentwood. Hasn't happened yet. I can tell you we've seen maybe about a couple dozen fire engines, mostly LA City fire engines, moving east on Sunset toward Allenwood, toward 26th Street in that area, setting up fire protection, we assume. But this area here, just to the west of El Malfi, wasn't burning about an hour ago. And to give you an idea just how quickly it moved through down the hillside, one home after another going, kind of exploding, we would hear at the popping of the gas canisters inside the home. Even sounded, to be frank with you, like there was some ammunition popping at one of the homes that was deep inside that wooded area. CHP patrol going down into the fire zone on Sunset right now. The entire area under evacuation. There hardly any power, I know, in the Pacific Palisades area. Power's all out. Cell service is all out. It's a ghost town there, except for the firefighters moving through. And this area pretty much all isolated too, with the evacuations. A couple of hours ago particularly, we had LAPD going through saying evacuate now, eastbound Sunset the only way. So Bobby, I'll throw it back to you. But the fire very much out of control, burning continuingly, but at least at this point looks like it's moving further down toward the ocean, further down toward PCH.
Continue to stay safe out there. You and Mike, we appreciate your coverage. Ed, thank you.
All right, it's 3 o'clock this morning. I'm Brooke Thomas. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. I'm Bob DeCastro. Welcome to Good Day LA. It's been quite an extraordinary night here in Southern California. We have multiple fires that are burning across LA County. Homes have been burned. Thousands more are threatened. Fires are burning out of control in several areas, notably Pacific Palisades, Sylmar. We have a fire near Altadena. At 8 o'clock this morning, we expect to get an update on all of these fires, dozens of school closures this morning to tell you about as well. For now, crews continue their best to save lives and property. You're watching an early edition of Good Day LA.
We're actually going to get started here in Sylmar, where we have Mario Ramirez at the Hearst fire. Mario, what can you show us?
Hi, Brooke, Bob. We can tell you that fire is still raging. You can see here some of the flames picking up and the embers that are being carried by the winds. This is a little calmer than what we saw even 15, 20 minutes ago, but these flames are still burning out of control here in this area. So we're at the Oak Ridge Mobile Home Community, Mobile Home Estates, and we're on Sombrero Street, and we continue to watch county and city fire crews make their way here into this area. And we've been watching a few people evacuate here from this neighborhood. I want to see if I can talk to a family here. Good morning. I understand that you all are evacuating from this home here.
That is correct.
How has this whole process been? I imagine stressful looking at all this.
No, definitely. It started at about 10 o'clock, and, you know, we haven't slept, so right now we just came back and to see this. Yeah.
And is everybody okay? Were you able to get everybody out safely?
Yeah, everybody's good so far. Thank God, but hopefully these winds die down and we'll be back.
And what do you think as we're watching some of these flames make their way closer to these homes here? It doesn't appear that any have been touched by the flames, fortunately, and everybody that we've talked to has, you know, gathered their things and are getting ready to leave. What do you think?
I think these guys have been doing a great job keeping it right over the ridge over there, and, you know, hopefully everything will be all right, man.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much for talking to us. So this is one of the residents here in the evacuation zone, and we're still seeing more cars driving here down through this neighborhood. Let me see if I can stop this one here and see if they're being evacuated. Hi there. No. All right. So we can tell you we're still feeling those strong winds, evacuation warnings, as well as orders here in this area. And I want to run through a few of the streets. They include residents here along Balboa Boulevard, Filbert Street, Bridle Ridge Road, and Nicholas Drive. Those are mandatory evacuations. A little farther to the north, you have the area near Whitney Canyon Park that has also been ordered to evacuate. And 3 evacuation shelters have been set up. The Richie Valens Rec Center on Laurel Canyon and Pacoima, Northridge Park, and the Sepulveda Recreation Center and Panorama City. So those are areas where you can find resources, where you can go if you really have nowhere else to go after leaving your home here because of these mandatory evacuations. So we had talked about how strong these gusts were going to be yesterday, upwards of 80 miles per hour, hurricane force winds. We're hoping for breaks in the winds, but at this point, we've still been feeling those conditions, and they are expected to continue throughout the day. So we'll be keeping an eye on things here in Sylmar as the fire continues to burn. The Hearst fire here behind me. We're now live.
So from what you've seen there, Mario, none of the homes, or you don't see any structures that have been damaged or destroyed there, right? And usually when you are in these mobile home parks, and especially ones that are near areas that are susceptible to fires, there's a pretty good sort of fire hydrant and water distribution system there. So when you were driving up, did you see all of those hoses along the road and the firefighters there positioned to protect those homes?
We did see some water sources a little farther down in this community, and fire crews were stationed here throughout. We did see flames getting dangerously close to these properties, but they've been doing a great job, and a lot of times the fire department credits the clearance, the brush clearance, for preventing these structures from going up in flames. So that appears to be the case here. We really have been keeping an eye on just how close these properties have been getting to going up in flames, but none here that we have seen, which is always good news. But we know the conditions can quickly change, the winds can switch directions, and ember can be carried for miles and start a new spot fire. So that's definitely a concern, but no damaged properties here just yet in Sylmar that we can see.
Mario, thank you. We'll check back in with you in a bit. This massive brush fire in Pacific Palisades continues to rage. At this hour, it has burned nearly 3,000 acres, destroying or damaging many structures. Thousands of people have been ordered to evacuate, with areas stretching east to Kinter Avenue and north to Mulholland. Several people suffered burn injuries, including a firefighter with a serious head injury. Highways and roads, including parts of PCH and Sunset Boulevard this morning, are closed.
Another fast-moving brush fire to tell you about. This is the Eaton fire, a picture here from the Mount Wilson camera. It has destroyed buildings, forced evacuations, and prompted widespread school closures. The fire was first reported after 6 o'clock last night, and then it's spotted near Altadena Drive and Midwick Drive. The Eaton fire consumed 1,000 acres by midnight. There are mandatory evacuations in effect. Areas north of New York Drive, east of Altadena Drive, west of Sierra Madre Villa Avenue, and this eventually expanded to parts of Arcadia and Pasadena. An estimated 19,000 people are now under mandatory evacuation orders. There are 8,200 structures at last count at risk. We've been telling you about school closures, and we do have that list for you. This is a list, obviously, that continues to expand. Nearly 24 Southern California school districts canceling classes today. We're going to go through these districts in alphabetical order. So all schools in Alhambra, Arcadia, Azusa, Baldwin Park, and Burbank.
Duarte, El Monte, Glendale, La Cañada, and Las Virginias. Monrovia, Mountain View, Pasadena, Rosemead, San Marino.
And then affected by the Palisades fire, we've got Santa Monica, the Malibu Unified School District. Santa Monica's College's Malibu campus will also be closed. Temple City and Valle Lindo school districts are also closed. Students should not report to campus. As we said, with daylight and as the hours go on, no doubt these school closures will likely expand as people and families and communities not only impacted by the fires, all of the closures of all the streets around these areas, but in a bigger sense, we've got the smoke that people are dealing with, all of the ash. There are power outages, multiple power outages throughout our region, so that no doubt is going to expand, and as soon as we get the list of school closures, we'll be sure to update that and bring that to you.
Whenever we have an issue like this, whenever we have any sort of fire, you know, you always talk about how far away you can see it, how far away you can smell it. Obviously, everyone is feeling some level of these winds. Samada, this has been something that I've never seen before.
I want to agree absolutely with you, Brooke. We have not witnessed something to this extent where winds are strong, widespread across Southern California. Good morning to you, Brooke. Good morning to Bob and to, of course, our viewers that have been sticking with us even since yesterday. And if you're just now joining us and you're hearing the howling winds, we still have the high wind warnings still in place. We've got sustained winds, a range of 30 to even 50 miles an hour, still possible through at least this morning, possibly even into midday. There is a hint of good news. Our winds will eventually subside a little more, making it a little more manageable by this evening. But we do have many hours ahead of us. We are in the thick of the peak winds where gusts unfortunately came to fruition, 60 to 80 plus miles an hour, hurricane force conditions. Magic Mountain Truck Trail, an observation site there, clocked in wind speeds of 86 miles an hour. In the Santa Ana Mountains, Fremont Canyon, 80 miles an hour. And those are really strong gusts. Still a possibility, again, throughout this morning. So a reminder to be safe out there. It is still dark. We've got a lot of debris in the roadway. And to both your points, a lot of smoke in those fire zones. Air quality, a big concern as well. Keep that in mind. And red flag conditions will stay in place through at least tonight for locations across Ventura County, LA County, the Inland Empire communities in Orange County. The red flag conditions will extend through Thursday. We have that particularly dangerous situation currently in effect. When you combine critical fire weather with those damaging winds, it leads to the possibility of more extreme fire behavior if there's a new fire that could spark. If you see something, a reminder to say something. Here are the additional weather impacts. So with the low relative humidity, new fires could pop up. Power outages, Bobby had mentioned this earlier. Likely, if you're experiencing those power outages, you want to make sure you have a backup battery. If you have to leave in a moment's notice, make sure you have a ready, set, go bag. A couple of reminders. Traveling, big rigs, campers, watch out for the blowing dust and debris. Those crosswinds are extremely strong, especially if you're traveling through some of our local corridors, through the 210, the 5 freeway, up and down through the Grapevine, the 14 freeway, the Cajon Pass, up and down that 15 stretch, and through the San Gorgonio Pass as well, along that 10 freeway, downwind of our local mountains and through some of our foothill communities. And look how widespread this wind event is. This has become very critical. We talked about how this is potentially could be life-threatening, and that, unfortunately, we are facing that reality. The highlighted contours are the locations where the winds are most strongest, and that takes us into 4 a.m. In another hour, not a whole lot of change there. Ferocious winds continue to blow offshore into the 7 a.m. hour, where finally we'll get to see, again, the sun rise at that point. But a lot of people are going to be back on the roads. You don't have to travel today. I would avoid it if you can. And if you can't avoid it, you want to make sure you leave home extra early, pay close attention. There's a lot of debris along, again, the local roads. Into 10 a.m., we get winds a little bit more on the relaxed side, but still not out of the danger zone. It won't be until afternoon, 2 p.m., and bigger improvements going into tonight. So there's that hint of better news for our fire crews that continue to work on containing these local fires. There's 3 active fires currently. The Palisades fire from yesterday, the Eaton fire near the Altadena Pasadena area, and our latest fire, which is the Hearst fire, where Mario Ramirez has been giving us the up-to-date information. So we will continue to see these conditions, widespread wind damage, windstorms still going to be in place through much of the day today. Extreme wildfire danger continues. And the potential for more power outages. We also have you covered traffic-wise as some of the fire zones. Wanted to bring your attention to some of the closures near the Palisades fire. PCH, both directions closed from Temescal Canyon Road to Las Flores Canyon Road to Panga Canyon Boulevard. From Mulholland Drive to PCH shut down due to the red flag conditions. Stay off of these roadways. Again, fire crews are working really hard to battle the blaze there. Hearst fire closures westbound side of the 210 from Yarnell Street to Roxford Street closed. Northbound 5 at the 210 connector also shut down. And this is due to, again, the Hearst fire there. Dangerous conditions that will continue through much of the day today. Back to you, too.
All right, Samada, a firefighter, was in the hospital after battling the Palisades fire. A 25-year-old woman suffered a serious head injury. She was treated at the scene and then taken to the hospital for further care. We were actually able to talk to the person who shot this video, freelance journalist Sal Hirsch with TNLA.
I'm not exactly sure what agency that firefighter was with, but they put out a mayday call. Apparently she may have had some sort of blow to the head, and she was in unknown condition. So we were just right down the street filming some of the destruction that ensued prior to that incident, and we got there pretty quick, and we saw CAL FIRE crews as well as some LAFD personnel lifting her on a on a thing, and they put her on the back of a pickup truck and ended up transporting her out of the fire zone. So it was definitely a pretty hectic scene, very crazy, and I just hope she's going to be okay.
Was she conscious? Was she talking to them?
It looked like her eyes were open. I didn't see her. I didn't see her physically talking or anything, but her eyes were open, which is a good sign.
It's a very good sign. We will keep you updated on her condition. The historic Getty Villa in the Palisades has experienced some damage to its grounds. Now, according to a post on social media, some trees and vegetation on the site have burned. However, no structures are on fire, and both the staff and the art collection remain safe. The museum's galleries and library archives were protected from smoke by state-of-the-art air handling systems. Additionally, the double-walled construction of the galleries provides pretty significant protection. The Getty Villa, though, of course, will remain closed through today.
Former LA mayoral candidate and real estate developer Rick Caruso criticizing the city's response to this windstorm and the fire this morning. He says officials should have been more prepared.
The real issue to me is twofold. We've had decades to go remove the brush in these hills that spread so quickly. And the second is, you got to have water, and my understanding is the reservoir was not refilled in time and in a timely manner to keep the hydrants going. So that's a failure, whether on DWP's part or another city agency. But this is basic stuff. This isn't high science here. And it's all about leadership and management that we're seeing a failure of, and all of these residents are paying the ultimate price for that.
Well, despite what you heard, no firefighters have told us that they are running out of water. Federal aid is on the way for local wildfire efforts. Governor Gavin Newsom says President Biden quickly approved funding after a text message request.
And the impact of these swirling winds and the embers and the number of structures that are destroyed, not a few, many structures already destroyed, and the fact that people were still not evacuated, still did not heed the warning, we're just coming down the canyon, is a reminder of how serious this moment is and how important it is you listen to these evacuation orders.
FEMA has granted federal assistance to help cover firefighting costs. The White House says Biden has been briefed and directed his team to stay in contact with state and local officials. High winds grounded President Biden's planned trip to the Coachella Valley, where he was set to announce 2 national monuments honoring Native American tribes. Those announcements and those signings will happen now at the White House.
An evacuation center has been set up for fire victims. Evacuees can go to the Westwood Recreation Center. Okay, it's on 1350 South Sepulveda Boulevard. Another evacuation center is open at the Dream Center in Los Angeles. The evacuation center for livestock and larger animals is Pierce College at 6201 Winnetka Avenue in Woodland Hills. Any smaller pets like cats and dogs, they can be taken to the LA County Animal Shelter at 29525 Agora Road in Agora.
More than 10,000 homes are being threatened by the Palisades fire, the fire that broke out yesterday morning. And you can see from video here how close the fire is to getting to many homes around the area. Listen to this.
Just be okay. You're gonna be okay, all right? You're gonna be okay. Oh, we got a fire. Yeah, don't worry about that, man. Okay.
So many questions here.
Yeah, this is a video that's gone viral. The fire just moved so quickly. People perhaps were trying to evacuate or getting ready to evacuate. We could only glean from the video that was taken here and was provided to us that this person was able to escape safely with that dog. But you can see how quickly this fire's moved, pushed by those strong winds right up to that house. An evacuation center has been set up for folks in the Palisades area. That is at the Westwood Recreation Center on Sepulveda Boulevard. All right, we want to tell you about school closures now. 13 campuses under the LA Unified School District will be closed today. These include Brentwood Magnet Canyon Elementary School, Diego Rivera Learning Complex, the Kenter Canyon Elementary Charter School, and the Marquez Charter Elementary.